and welcome to Insight. Well, if you're there and you still think that coronavirus is a myth, well, reality check, it is here, and indeed it is a reality. Well, I cannot begin to ask you if you're worried or not, because I do know that as the number of positive cases increase, so also the level of public anxiety. But are we doing enough as a people to help contain the spread of the virus and help the government's containment plan? Well, we will be talking about that, as well as other palliative measures being put in place by government to combat, or rather mitigate, the economic impact of the pandemic. My name is Nnamdi Odipo, and as usual, I've got Elizabeth Omoruyi here with me. Elizabeth, what's the outlook for the media review segment for this episode?
It's quite sad that we have begun to count cases, and then I think as of today we have just one death. But the truth is, the question is rather, COVID-19, is it based on fear, rumor, or anxiety? Well, on the media review segment, we shall be taking a look at the role of the media in engendering public participation in the containment of COVID-19. What will be the role of the media? Is this just a myth or reality?
The media does have a critical role to play. If you take a good look at what is happening or playing out in our society now, as cases increase, you would notice that fear, anxiety, and rumor are fast becoming the greatest enemy, and not the virus itself. Well, let's get started with the discussion segment. Dr. John Thor Abidai, Director Executive In-Country Medicare, joins us now. He's also the Secretary General, Integrative Medicine West Africa. Welcome to Insight.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here.
A couple of weeks ago, we had just one case on our hands. Now, that's not the case anymore. For those out there who had thought at that time that coronavirus was a myth, now it's a reality. And it's here with us. Let me ask you, Dr. John, considering the number of cases, confirmed cases that we have right now, would you say we did not properly utilize the window of opportunity we had to prepare for an outbreak?
Now, let me re-emphasize what you have just said. COVID-19 is actually a reality. Whether you're talking from here or you're talking from there, it has actually gone global, and that's why it has been classified by WHO as being pandemic. Pandemic that is globally, it is. So from the onset, you have to tighten your own borders. You talk about index case. How did we get that index case? It came from outside. Somebody came from Italy, and then it became established. Even if you talk of the most recent one, reported in Lagos again, they said that it was a passenger on British Airlines that came from London. So, I know the government is doing its own best. There's a lot of publicity on how to protect ourselves, wash hands, do this, do that. But you see, we need to do more in terms of tightening our borders so that we can focus and contain our population.
There are lots of myths about the coronavirus as it is right now. A couple of facts out there. We'll do a game of true or false, and I'll go down a couple of questions with you. You would confirm whether or not it is true or it's false, and if you so wish, you'd like to just explain, why you're supporting it or taking, admitting whether it's true or false. So I'll take the first one. Is it true that exposure to hot temperature kills the virus?
True. And let me explain that. COVID-19 virus is what they call RNA virus. You have DNA virus and then you have RNA virus. And it is to say that the virus is highly sensitive to environmental conditions. Definitely heat or high temperatures inactivate. That is a way of saying that it kills, the virus.
This is your opinion, or is scientific?
No, it is scientifically, proven. I'm not speaking my own opinion, and I'm not here to speak my own opinion. I have to give you information that has some scientific backing that will help our people. So, yes, to that.
Okay, great. The next one, true or false? Are black people more resistant to the virus than white?
Well, that is highly controversial. I wouldn't like to say no or say true, because for you to make such a statement, there must be some scientific studies with the proof. Have we actually looked into that scientifically, looking some parameters, taken into some consideration? Because if you say based on the cases of just incidents alone, and we have fewer cases here than this other, it has just come. We don't know how far it is really going to go. But what I can attest, and even the kind of hypothesis, that because of the high temperatures that we have here, is most likely based on the biology of the virus, that the virus may not survive. Remember, I'm saying may not survive here as well as it will survive in cool, temperate zones.
So we'll leave that as unclear, considering that we have very limited data on our hands. I'll go to the next one. Is it true or false that consumption of garlic and ginger help to boost the immune system, which in turn also helps in the fight against the virus?
I'll tell you categorically yes, because garlic...
Yes, true.
Yes, it is true. Because if you look at it in the component of immunomodulation or boosting the immune system, definitely garlic and ginger are known as adaptogens. Adaptogens, these are, products or phytoproducts or phytochemicals or product containing phytochemicals that are able to boost the immune system.
Great. So would that answer the question about water spiked with lemon being able to also boost the immune system?
Yes. It is also, this is also scientifically true, because remember what we have said earlier, that the virus cannot survive in certain environment. So when with lemon, it makes it uncomfortable for the virus to survive. As well as the effect of lemon, it has also been documented. You look at it, lemon actually boosts the production of the immune system too.
Okay, so I'll ask you another one. Does chloroquine cure the coronavirus now, but knowing fully well that we do not have a cure in hand right now? Well,
that again, Nnamdi, I got to tell you, I'm not going to say yes or no, because this is something that had just been reported with respect to COVID-19. Have we really come up with a good number of studies that actually validated, statistically, that it is statistically significant that chloroquine, does this? I was just looking at a case where the N, what is the number of patients involved, was just, 30. And that is where they came up with that. That very study is still being, debated. So we've not come to a conclusion that the P, or what we could call the power or the statistical power of, of a test is actually suggestive or positive that this is so or this is not so. We talk about P equals to 0.01, and anything that has to be statistically significant, the P value must be greater than 0.01, depending on how you set it. If it is that less, it tells you that it is very unlikely that your hypothesis is going to be affirmative.
Okay, so I'll leave that as unclear for now, based on limited data as well. And then there's another one that it's possible that you can actually test for the virus if you're able to, being able to hold your breath in for about 10 seconds would help you self-test for the virus. Is that true or false?
Yeah, true, because it is one of the ways. If you look at it, as I said earlier, the virus pre-deletion site, that is where there are a number of receptors where the virus attached to, is in the lungs. And once it gets to the lungs, it now causes fibrosis, and this definitely interferes with your own breathing. So if you do that, what is a little bit of a litmus test, and then you're not able to breathe, freely, you see that it means that there is some pathological influence going on in your lungs. However, that alone is not confirmatory that you are having COVID-19.
Great.
infection.
Talk to me about boosting the immune system now, because it would seem that this is quite critical in tackling, for the spread of the virus as it is. How can we, or how should we, what practices can we or should we engage in at this point to boost our immune system in fighting this pandemic?
Fantastic question. Let me take that question from back and then I'll go in the front. First of all, let me highlight some few ways which would actually deplete our immune system, things that you should not do. And then I will tell you things that you will do to boost your immune system. Take, for example, if you do not have adequate sleep, it affects your immune system. If you consume high amount of sugar, and what I mean by sugar in this case is refined sugar. Refined sugar is known to suppress our own immune system. If you involve yourself or indulge in some illicit or risk factors that lead to depletion of the immune system, such as smoking, such as excessive drinking of alcohol, these are things that will actually work against your own immune system. Also, stress. If you are overstressed, studies have shown that there is a direct correlation between stress and immune system. Now, having said those factors that you must take in consideration that they work against your system, how do you boost your immune system? That is your question. I would like to put them in this order, not in any importance way, but food, the type of food that you eat is very important, because your food, that is your nutrition, and we know that nutrition plays a key role in our immune status. And the type of food also, this day we learn a lot of emphasis on quality oil for cooking, because the cell membrane that is involved in all activities, including immune cells, the membrane has to be lined with the right type of lipid. Those are the oils. And here is where our omega-3 comes in very handy. You should take good quality omega-3. Okay. Then you are looking at what we call detoxification. 80% of our immune system is actually generated from the gut. And if you have a clean gut, it creates a balance between the useful bacteria and the bad bacteria. If there is that balance between the useful and the good bacteria, it leads to a condition known as dysbiosis. And with dysbiosis, you have a compromised immune system. Your immune system keeps going down. Now, how do we also have? In addition to good food and then the good oil, we also encourage the use of probiotics. Probiotics, these are products that actually help with the growth of the good bacteria. Remember, I've said that 80% of our immune system is generated from the gut. So that really helps you do this. Then the other things you need to do includes things like exercise. You need to exercise, properly. You know what I mean by proper exercise? At least smart walking for about 30 to 40 minutes every day is strongly recommended, so that it will help build your own, immune system. Another factor, which we were just discussing before we came on air, is that of spirituality. Believe you me, spirituality is a component of your health care, and people should take this very, seriously. There is a field of science known as psychoneuroimmunology that definitely defines the connection between your soul, the central nervous system, and your immune system. So spirituality, your belief, whether Christian or Muslim, you have to have that belief that there is a greater creator. I'll use that, to tell you some of our own experiences. There is a woman who was being managed, and honestly, this is, I'm talking about integrative approach, using different modalities, and she was just not responding. And after in-depth questioning, she now confessed that she was so bitter in her heart that she did not forgive certain things that her father and uncle had done to her when she was young. And on counseling, and when she totally knelt down to forgive them, you see how this woman started responding to, treatment.
The recovery rate.
Yeah, recovery rate, improved significantly. So you have so many other factors that we can talk. I had earlier talked about sleep in the other way, but good sleep in the positive way will also help you, modulate, or what we call up-regulate your immune system. It enhances and boosts, the level of your, immune system. What do I mean by good sleep? Is what we call quality hour sleep. At least it is recommended that we sleep for 6 to 8 hours in the day. That is very important. And this must be quality hours. It doesn't mean that you start sleeping from 12 noon till 8 p.m., you've gotten 8 quality hours. No.
Do you see a lot of us doing that in Nigeria?
They do it. It is due to lack of information. But if you go to civilized worlds or people who know, who have the knowledge, the best time for you to go to bed is 8 p.m. Between the hours of 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Considering that a lot of people still work at that hour.
The work is very unfortunate. They are really working uphill against the immune system. And why is that so important? There is a chemical, and I keep hitting on this, melatonin. These are the hours which melatonin, which is known as hormone of sleep, is secreted in our body. Melatonin modulates the immune system. Melatonin regenerates and rejuvenates the body cells. Melatonin detoxify the body's cells as well. So if you miss it, you are vulnerable to being attacked, or you are vulnerable and you will become immunocompromised. That is to say that your immune system will go down.
Talking about immune system and precautions now, there are a couple of practices being put forward by public health physicians and also the Nigerian Center for Disease Control. Personal hygiene is in the center of it all. There is also the practice of using gloves and face masks, and you see that a lot. But let me ask you this. What is the standard practice for usage of things like the glove and the face mask?
Well, I would say that these are protective measures that you need to take.
Yeah, but my point really is that I see this. It's playing out now. You see people wear them for days on end.
You're right. And that's why when you talk about things like, mask, the question that comes on, how many people are even putting it right? How many people are using, the right type of, mask? This is face mask that you see people putting it all over now. And in reality, can you put your mask on for over 24 hours? And are you using the right type of mask? The right type of mask, to use is what they call N95. Is that the type of mask that we're really using? And are we even using the mask, rightly? So these are some of the things and some of the challenges.
Okay, fear, anxiety, rumor, stigma are fast becoming the greatest enemy in this fight against coronavirus, against the pandemic. And here in Nigeria, we see rising public anxiety, with more recorded cases and confirmed cases, and public anxiety rises as well. How can we effectively manage these issues, that is, manage anxiety now, public anxiety as it were? What can we do, not just as governments now, but as a people and a community as well?
Well, you see, the generation we live in now, that is, the internet stage, it has its own advantages and its own vices. You see, a lot of information flow goes on. But before I go further, let me summarize it in the words of, we like copying the U.S., and because I want to start, President Trump, the U.S. Surgeon General, and top scientists, medical scientists, have just told the Americans, we should not be afraid of COVID-19. That is, the Americans should not be. The correct thing for them to do, the right thing for them to do, is to make sure that they have a buoyant immune system. So that even if you take some of these protective measures, that protects the virus from getting into your body. And unfortunately, if you're unfortunate that the virus enters your body, if your immune system is up, the virus will not do you anything. So, I told you earlier, there is a study, a field of study known as psychoneuroimmunology. It addresses the impact of fear on the immune system. Fear actually causes stress on us. Stress is known to have effect on our adrenal glands. The adrenal glands now produce a stress hormone known as cortisol. Cortisol is known to be immunosuppressive. So, what do? Having gotten this knowledge now, please is an appeal. Just like President Trump and the Surgeon General of the United States assured Americans that they should not live in fear.
And the Nigeria Center for Disease Control has also assured Nigerians as well.
I just hope that we are listening, because honestly, I'm not calling against any of the measures that are being taken, but this should be at individual level. Don't live too much in fear. Let me tell you an example. Just yesterday, I have a sister who is also in integrative medicine. She came to visit me, and then we shook hands. The children they said, "Oh, Mom, they said us not to share." We both laughed. The mother told them, "Yes, it's people who don't understand. As long as you're taking those protective measures and your immune system is up and running, you don't have to fear." At least she erased the fear amongst the children.
So at what point does preventive measures like social distancing and self-isolation come in? Do you think we're being overtly yes, by the whole
No, there is
scenario?
no doubt about that. Social distancing is really very important, and that's why I'm saying of the two major steps that we should take, that of protection by washing hands, social distancing, and all of them. Then the second one of making sure our immune system is really up and running. These two must be combined. Then the third one, avoid fear. So let's look at it in three aspects. The protective action of social distancing. Social distancing is true. There is just no doubt about it. If I'm really close to you, since this virus is actually spread by direct contact. If I'm actually close to you, if I cough and the rate of infection is quite high. However, if I have a buoyant immune system, let me get it come into my body. The virus will my body will take that. After all, do you know that you have about 40% of our DNA is actually infected with one virus or the other. And you talk about diseases like, cancer, which these days we have actually downplayed on it a little bit because of COVID-19. Do you know that every day our bodies produce over 10,000 cells, cancer cells? But because if your immune system is up and running, you will be fine. Even look at the cases, the mortality or the fatality cases of COVID-15. Especially it has been reported over there in Italy. Most of the people, 80% that died are the elderly, people who had one problem or the other: cancer, diabetes, hypertension, obesity. Also, Australian medical doctors or scientists have just demonstrated that there is a direct relationship, they call it mapping, of the immune system vis-a-vis COVID-19. They've shown that patients that were coming into the recovery phase had the immune system was actually boosted. The immune system actually enhanced up. So there is a direct correlation between immune system and then the effect of the virus.
Is it? How does this work for us if we have a population of predominantly young people, and young people are known to have a better immune system, when compared to the aged and old people, especially those with underlying ailments? Today, Europe is the epicenter of the virus, of the pandemic. It's been speculated that Africa might just be the next epicenter. For us as Nigerian, with a population of young people with better and stronger immune system, how does that factor for us? Does that spell good news?
You see, let's look at
for, or does it work against us?
Some of these things, when you say good immune system, those are just preemptive assumptions. If I don't know whether you've been following it, 2 days ago they came up with this video of that person, an American in Ohio. This guy claims he's been doing everything he needed to do and was doing well and, fine. So you look at such a person and assume that his immune system is up, regulated. However, he came out, this is to say that, was he actually immunopotent? So we cannot just make assumptions that, because young are they resting properly? Are they doing most of the things that I had listed that will actually help you build the immune system? Most of them are up there in the night. They don't have good sleep. They are also playing all sorts of games, internet, this, and they don't sleep well. So would you say that such a person is actually, immunologically, competent? It's a question, unless proven, if you're able to measure and evaluate his immunological status.
Just before I let you go, because we're fast losing time, you've talked a lot about boosting the immune system, and of course also taking precautions like personal hygiene. We're confronted with this, yes, and fear inclusive as well. It's on our hands right now, and then government is taking precautions. Our response plan is being coordinated by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control. And we've seen some of the results out there. We recorded a death today, unfortunately, our first death resulting from coronavirus. All in all, and with all you've seen, can you begin to, is it possible for you to make projections, and knowing also that we already have an issue with testing kits in Nigeria, as it is, just about every part of the world is experiencing challenges with testing right now. If this disease, if this virus spreads further in Nigeria, and we don't hope so, we don't pray so, some have said that it might, and it's capable of overwhelming our health system, as it were. At this point, what do you think should be done by the government and by Nigerians in containing further spread of the coronavirus here in the country?
Fantastic question. You have short-term solutions, then you have long-term solutions. In terms of short-term solution, that is towards, you see, the bottom line is about our immune status. How do you boost our immune, status or immune system, or upregulate our immune, system?
How quickly can one actually do that? Can you do like a week or two?
No. The question of immune system depends on how to take, for example, vitamin C, which is now being used all over the world, can boost your immune system within less than 3 weeks if you take the right amount of vitamin C. It is recommended that at least you take 5 grams of vitamin C in divided doses. For 3 days, you will see. Also, vitamin D is also very important. You see, most of us apparently are deficient in vitamin D. So if you take high doses of vitamin D, because vitamin D is involved amongst many other thousands of functions that it actually performs in the body, it is involved in upregulating our immune system. So you have a lot of other things
like
that you can do. Minerals like zinc and copper, all of them you take, they upregulate your immune system. That is a short-term solution. But the long-term solution, the diet is very important. Make sure we contain metals, because we cannot continue living on this. Or if you're so deficient in your immune system and you boost it with some of these injectables with zinc and then vitamin C and vitamin D, then you can maintain it with a good diet. But for immediate disease, these are very important and key things that we should embark on getting.
Thank you so much, Dr. John Thor Bidei. Thank you for coming on Insight. It's been a pleasure talking with you. It's been an insightful program, an enlightening one, and I want to believe our viewer out there has learned a lot listening, just from listening to you. Thank you so much for coming on Insight. We hope to bring you back another time when we hope we would have successfully contained the spread of the virus in Nigeria, and then we'll take a review of our response plan and many more. Dr. John Thor Abida is the Director Executive in Country Medicare. He's also the Secretary General, Integrative Medicine West Africa. Well, up next is our interview segment. We now take a look at the economics of the coronavirus pandemic and how best to mitigate the impact. Our government has put out some measures to contain or rather mitigate the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic here in Nigeria. Dr. Abdulrahman Abu Amisu joins us now. He is a political economist. Welcome to Insight.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Let's begin by asking you to give us a breakdown, and please do try to be specific. Of course, we do know that there are other factors that have also exacerbated the rapid decline in the price and the global price of crude oil now in the market. But let's be specific to coronavirus now. And please just give us a breakdown of how coronavirus impacted on the global price of oil and how these has in turn impacted on local and domestic economies like Nigeria.
Yeah, if you ask experts, some of them will tell you that globalization commenced with the breaking down of barriers that had always really held countries back from interacting with one another and trading. But globalization started right from colonial era, where infrastructure that will enhance connectivity, trade, as well as movement of people, among other things, were really built. Starting from rail to roads to airways and then other cable infrastructure that has made GSM possible today. So globalization started that very particular period of time so that the world economy became interlinked to the extent that we cannot do without one another. So what you're producing locally feeds into the international market to the extent that countries are dependent on one another, because we believe that resources are not evenly and equally distributed. So what you have, country A does not have it, country B does not have it, country C may have some. So the interaction allow countries to trade with one another and earn foreign income exchange. So if there is anything that has really underpinned this very particular interaction that is leading to consumption has been crude oil. So, yeah, crude oil. So crude oil is powering industry, is powering our cars, is powering our homes, is powering the jets that have contracted space and time. To the extent that you are in Abuja today, you sleep in Amsterdam in the next couple of hours. So this is what crude oil was able to do to the world. It powered the entire gamut of industrialization. So if you remove crude oil from the Western civilization and the interactions we're having today, the country would descend back to the dark ages that we used to read about. So this is to tell us the importance of crude oil. Now, coming to the coronavirus. The coronavirus is such that has pushed countries to take a drastic measure, which has been tagged shutdown. This shutdown is to enhance the capacity of state to contain the spread of this person-to-person virus. So the measure includes shutting down where you have more than, say, 10, 20, 30, 50 persons working together. So that has affected industries, that has affected airlines, that has affected rail system, that has affected markets, it has affected places that will bring people together to interact, to consume, to drink, to eat. So that in turn is affecting the companies because there is low patronage. And these companies that have shut down are not producing. And if they're not producing, they are not drinking the water of civilization, which is crude oil. And to that extent, it means that the world is not buying crude oil, especially those affected countries. These are the heart of the industrial production as the way, and this is what is happening.
So it's not basically production now that is supply that is affected. It's actually the demand for crude oil that is now determining.
Yeah, it's the demand side.
The rapid decline.
Yeah,
in
because
prices.
without demand there will be no supply. So now the demand is there, but coronavirus has made it practically impossible for countries and private individuals to operate the economy. So people are no longer consuming. They are not demanding for goods. They are not demanding for services. Even if they need it, they need to remain indoors. And that has affected this industry that are producing, that are rendering services that people needed to demand, which will lead them to demand for crude oil. So it's not as if it's from the production angle. No, the supply is still there. For instance, Nigeria is still producing the same quantity it is producing for the world market. The problem now is the demand is not just there because of the coronavirus.
Great. So in fact, the global economy is impacted by these developments,
Yeah,
and Nigeria is not left out.
Yes.
And Nigeria is part of the community.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: we do know, and rightly so, that we have a backlog of about 50 cargoes waiting to be sold, and we do have a projection for the 2020 budget based on amounts earned, and we do know that 90% of our foreign earning is from oil. How badly, or what shape are we right now in terms of the economy? I mean, if we're being realistic now.
You see,
how badly hit are we?
We are badly hit because prior to this very particular point in time, one of the fundamental problem with Nigeria economy is that the economy is not producing enough to the extent that the government is able to raise funds for development. So what that translates to is that the national liability of the country is more than the income the economy is generating. And if you want any economy to generate income, the people must be up and doing to the extent that they become self-reliant, and they are seizing on initiatives that they can become employers of labor and then create wealth from which government can tax for developmental purposes. This is not happening in Nigeria. Only very few could take advantage of most of the opportunities this government have created. For instance, the NISAL program that's supposed to de-risk agriculture for people to really key into agriculture and make profit. The Bank of Industry programs, the ones that are being handled by Central Bank of Nigeria, which requires that you possess some level of education in terms of starting an enterprise and running it successfully to the extent that it becomes profitable. Now, this is not there. And this is why there is a funding gap between all the government needed to do and the resources that are available for government to actually tackle those problems, from insecurity to unemployment to infrastructure, name them. Now, the only source that has really assisted government immensely are just two sources: foreign exchange earning through export of crude oil and borrowing from either local borrowers or international donor agencies. And the government will be blending both to really reposition our infrastructure to make us competitive in terms of ease of doing business, so that people can do business and government can earn from those activities. Now, one source has been badly dealt fatal blow, which is the crude component, which is the largest area. Of course, I'm aware that non-oil sector is beginning to contribute to significantly to the economy. But again, we must understand that there is a gestation period between when a policy is initiated and when the actual impact or outcome was going to manifest. So that period between when the policy is actually initiated and implemented and when the expected impact will really manifest, there is a stopgap measure, and the stopgap measure has been borrowing. So what this is telling us is, if we don't double our effort as a nation to produce what we consume, because 200 million population is not a liability, where you have people that are up and doing, people that are not dependent on the bureaucracy for employment, people that will seize initiative and become producers rather than consumers, people that will become self-reliant rather than relying on government. So if we have that situation where the youth are producing, the youth have initiative, and the market is big. For instance, in Nigeria previously, the issue of selling of soup was not there. So you either make your soup in your home or you go to a restaurant. Today, as a result of pressure, You have people that are cooking soup specifically. They are young persons, they cook soup. So if you close from office, instead of going home to spend another hour to cook your soup, you can easily go to those places and you buy your soup. And this is one of the things we're talking about. In terms of ICT, our youth are beginning to produce a lot of apps that are making significant impact on the economy. And the government is making revenue through those areas. The NISAL initiative, government is doing all of this in order to empower the citizens so that it can in turn get something from the citizens. So until we continue to produce value, we may find ourselves in a very deep trouble as we go ahead, because at the end of it all, even payment of salary will become a challenge to the government if we are not going to do what we need to do to diversify our economy, to ensure that as we go forward, the non-oil sector will continue to produce, to contribute significantly to the economy.
There's a possibility that there will be a further decline in the global price of oil,
yes.
and that puts us further in a difficult position.
Yes.
At what point do we begin to look at issues like a social program, social welfare program, economic program rather, for especially, let's consider those on the streets? And I am saying this against the backdrop that the coronavirus pandemic continues for a while, okay, say for another couple of weeks, and we do not hope so. But if it does continue for a couple of weeks, and we've seen what is playing out in Lagos, for instance, now, Lagos is fast shutting down. And if that happens and spread, at what point do we begin to consider a social plan to cater for people who make daily pay, for instance?
You see, when we talk about social investment, my idea of social investment is quite different from the social investment some of us are talking about in Nigeria. The social investment most of us are talking about in Nigeria is a social investment program that promotes idleness. I am for a social program that empowers people to really become responsible and responsive to their own needs and the needs of the society. And if one would be just and dispassionately look at the governance model of President Muhammadu Buhari, I think it is one of the governance model that has approximate what government needed to do.
Dr. Amiso, in your plan, how would your plan, considering all that is happening now, how would your plan, very quickly because we're fast losing time, how would your plan cater to the needs of daily workers, for instance? Being realistic now, because we know we have lots of them, not just in Abuja, here in Lagos, in Ondo, in Benin, across the Federation.
One of the things that the federal government has done is to slash the budget. And substantially, what they've taken out of the budget are capital expenditure. This is to show that the government really don't want to push the workers in a direction that will further lead to downward spiral of the economy. Because if there is nothing, the recurrent expenditure should be able to take care of salaries and wages of workers. Because without that, most of our states are dependent on government salaries to function. Because the majority of the people that are patronizing our local market are those that are earning from government. So you give kudos to the government for that. The second thing again is that it has not stopped the social investment program. It is still investing in the social investment program that is supporting the less privileged. In addition to funds that those of us that are smart can take advantage of, and then we can establish one or two business that will contribute to the overall. Because the sum total of our activities and what we do is what used to feed into the economy that gives us our GDP.
Two questions in very quick succession as well. What do you think of government reduction of the price of petrol in the country, very quickly?
Well, that decision is a very good one, because the government has always said that the price of crude oil or the price of our PMS is as dictated by the international relation between demand and supply. So if we are paying higher prices when petroleum prices, when crude oil price is at the highest at the international level, now that it has crashed, it means it should translate into a reduction. So government has been able to keep to its own promise. But what are the likely consequences of that action of government? is what citizens are not really thinking about. Because some people are not even happy that, okay, the reduction was just 20 naira.
Dr. Amiso, I'll just butt in here and thank you for coming on the show. It's regrettable that we do not have enough time to talk about some of these issues. There are a lot of things to talk about when you look at how much so the coronavirus pandemic has impacted on domestic economies and economies, monolithic economies like Nigeria. Yeah, we do know that efforts are ongoing by the current administration to diversify the economy, and most of those plans are on stream and are fast-bearing fruits. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Dr. Abdulrahman Abu Amiso. He is a political economist. We hope to bring you back here sometime very, very soon to speak more on this issue. Well, that's it. I will be handing you over now to Elizabeth Omoruyi for the media review segment.
Thanks for joining us on the media review segment of the program. COVID-19, since its debut in Nigeria in February this year, Nigeria has recorded more than 30 cases. Disturbing figure, you would say. Today, we shall be examining the role of the media in engendering public participation in the containment of COVID-19. And my guest, Rabi Abdallah, Head Health Desk of the NTA, will provide answers. It's nice to have you on the segment.
It's good to be here once again, Elizabeth.
All right, there's so much fear, anxiety, and rumor to contend with. Talking about COVID-19, what is the media doing to ensure that Nigerians are calm?
There's every reason for for the anxieties to be heightened in the sense that we're reporting more cases.
Okay.
But of course, like most experts have said, COVID-19 is not a death sentence. Okay? It's not a death sentence. It could be and can be if the right things are not done properly, if the right things are not done the right way. For instance, we have a role as media practitioners to dispel rumors, and having that ability will entail having the right information, which so far so good. We'll be making efforts to get, so that as the rumors come up, we get the right information from those who have the right information and pass it on to the public. For instance, recently, the latest one will be the panic in the purchase of chloroquine. And where did that come from? Simply because the U.S. president, came out to say that chloroquine had been discovered to be efficacious in the treatment of COVID-19. And of course, Nigerians, knowing them for whom they are, just took to panic buying, stocking up of chloroquine, and even going into self-medication that had landed a lot of people into trouble. Yeah, we sought clarification, from the Minister of Health, and he had said, as you know, chloroquine used to be used in the treatment of malaria some years back, but due to high resistance, it was phased out and replaced with the acetaminophen combined therapy in the treatment of malaria. So when we took up the health minister on that, we took him up on that, and he said, Nigeria does not use chloroquine. It's not a chloroquine administration country. But I think people got it wrong, especially the fact that the DG NAFDAC equally came out to say something, on chloroquine. But what she said was the fact that trials are on, that chloroquine can be looked into, as among therapies or drugs that are being, looked into.
Let's talk about sensitization. Some believe it is airborne. Really, is this disease airborne?
Well, at the initial stage, we were meant to understand that COVID-19 is not airborne, but what we should avoid is droplets from maybe when people sneeze or cough, those droplets. But recently, something else had come up, and that's the fact that it is airborne. Airborne in the sense that the virus can stay in the air or in the atmosphere for as long as 9 hours. But I sought clarification from some medical experts, and what they told me was that it depends on the atmospheric condition of the place.
Okay.
So if the atmosphere is humid, And so that's, from their explanation, wetness, which fortunately for us, we're in the dry season, okay? So I think that helps to some extent. So you can compare what we have, the tropics, where Nigeria belongs, and some other maybe Arctic regions and what have you, where they said that the virus can thrive more. So, but notwithstanding, that does not mean it cannot thrive. It can still be in the air, but it might not last as long as it will in a colder region.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about the myth behind COVID-19. Some still don't believe it has debuted in Nigeria. How can we help such people?
It's unfortunate. I wish we could have something that could drastically change that, mindset, that attitude. It's ignorance, and you know what ignorance can do. For crying out loud, from the epicenter, we saw the devastating effect that COVID-19 had on China, moving to Europe, Italy, and some other European countries. And we're seeing, initially, the people were even saying it doesn't have effects on the black man. We have seen black people who have died. Nigeria reported its first casualty of black man or Nigerian. So what are we talking about? So I think it's just about, being receptive to the information we receive and trying to work with those information to keep safe and keep people around us safe. It doesn't make sense when people come into the country from overseas and they are not observing self-isolation. They don't go into self-isolation. What does it take? It's just 14 days, 2 weeks.
Has the media done enough in sensitizing people now that we know that we have a section of the society with that notion that, COVID-19 is not real?
I think we've done enough, and we're still trying our best to keep talking based on the right information that we get. And we'll keep talking. COVID-19 is real. It's real. And we've seen, we don't need anyone to come telling us, what, to still be in denial. We shouldn't be in denial. But my fear, my greatest fear will be, how the reality of things down on some people. When, for instance, one loses someone very close to him, to the virus, do we have to wait until that happens? No. So, caution is the watchword. We've been asked to observe social distancing. We should take it seriously. It's a serious strategy that the WHO has recommended. No matter how close you are to someone, COVID-19 is, redefining the rules of human interaction, and we must respect that while the deadly virus lasts.
Wow, redefining human interaction. That's interesting.
That's it.
It's interesting.
That's it.
Madam Rabi Abdallah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on COVID-19.
Thanks for having me, Elizabeth. The pleasure is mine.
And that's it on the Media Review segment this week. Don't forget, be alert. And if you feel unwell, please stay at home.
Well, that's it for this episode. I think it's imperative to point out here that there is need for us as a people, as a community, to come together and take precautionary measures that would help contain further spread of coronavirus in Nigeria. Elizabeth?
Well, I think at this point I would like to say, for those of us that really like to share things on the social media, let's know what we share. Don't just share information. Don't just pass them like that. Because when you share an information that is not true, that is misleading, it could create fear and panic. So we don't need that at this point in time in the country. So let's know what we share on the social media.
Indeed, indeed. Please maintain good personal hygiene and please take precautionary measures already spelled out by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control. And in doing all of that, I think it would help curb further spread of the virus. Do join us same time next week for more on Insights. My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Let's be the healthy nation together.